Alright guys, welcome back to Strong Successful Male. So for today, I'm going to go over an article titled, No, Women Don't Have an Easier Time on Dating Apps. There is no female privilege in the dating world. And guys, when I saw this article, I almost fell out of my chair laughing, okay? Because any of you guys that have ever experienced online dating, going on the dating apps to meet women and all that, know perfectly well that women have far greater advantage on those dating apps than your average guy. Your average woman is going to get way more attention from guys than a above average good looking guy is going to get from women. Okay? Absolutely. And we all know, obviously, statistically, that there's far more men on the dating apps than women, okay? And yet she's going to this whole thing basically complaining how that's not true in her opinion, and it's unfair, and it's a myth and all that. And going into all those details, like I just said, and of course also she's going to mention obviously a lot of guys saying inappropriate things to her in messages and emails and all that. And don't get me wrong, that's not cool. Nobody should feel unsafe or in harm's way or threatened or anything like that. But at the end of the day, that is what the delete button is for those messages and emails, and that is why they have a blocking feature on those different type of apps. But again, like I said, guys, any of you guys that have done this know darn well how difficult it is. And you can be a guy that's definitely above average, of the all-important sixes, 6 feet tall, 6-figure income, six inches plus down south, six-pack. Even if you possess a couple of those things on the glory list for a lot of women, still, it's going to be a lot harder for you than it is just for an average girl that's just okay looking, not just in her 20s, but also 30s and 40s and up. I got a friend and personal training client, cool woman. She's in her early 50s, and before COVID happened, when she was dating regularly, she'd get like 50 contacts a week, okay? Now imagine if she was in her 30s or 20s. It'd be way more. She doesn't have to do anything and always has dudes reaching out to her. So she's got it made. And so it goes to show you. So this woman's got to be out of her mind here, unless she obviously has some serious issues and she's being challenged in the looks department. But anyhow, guys, I'm going to go through this here and point out the BS along the way. And you get an interesting perspective from the female side of this. So it starts off. Ever since the beginning of the pandemic, my single female friends have been more active on dating apps and dating sites. They've been scouring Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, Coffee Meets Bagel, and many more apps for a romantic companion to help them endure the hellscape that is 2020. They've searched high and low to find a fulfilling relationship that will ideally last beyond the end of the pandemic. So, depending on where you live, guys, here in the United States during the peak of 2020, of the pandemic in 2020, some states, literally people weren't leaving their houses or could do it for very little things, to some states where there was a lot more flexibility and freedom of what you were doing, okay? It all depended on where you live. Here in Massachusetts, they definitely were pretty serious about the whole lockdown, especially this time last year, March, April, and May, and things loosened up once we got to the summertime. But people were still doing these online dating things and apps and all that stuff. And it was interesting because a lot of guys had women reaching out to them they haven't heard for years because the women were at home bored and they wanted attention, so they wanted somebody to talk to. So, if you're just talking to somebody through dating apps but you can't go out, you're not exactly going to find meaningful relationships just yapping through the apps here. So it's a little unrealistic to think you're going to find something meaningful when all you can do is, at best Zoom with each other, right? Goes on, but even though they're all wonderful and attractive people, none of them have had any luck finding anything that really clicks. They've been ignored by most of the people they reach out to. The few responses they have received haven't been very promising. A couple of them have had horrible experience of being S-word harassed by men who objectify them rather than viewing them as full humans. Now, I like to know the definition, in her view, what is considered to be objectified. Because at the end of the day, when it comes to dating apps, guys are going to obviously go for the women that have pictures that they find attractive. Okay? And yes, certain guys are going to say some things, and it all depends on the woman's point of view, what is considered to be inappropriate or not inappropriate. You could have some guys that can make comments that they generally didn't mean any harm, but depending on the woman, she makes a mountain out of the molehill and blows up and says that's, inappropriate. But other women wouldn't care and find it flattering, And I'd like to know who these friends of hers are and what her definition of as attractive is if they can't find any dudes. But again, we all know darn well how picky women are. And guys, I've made before, by the way, with regards to the dating apps, I've made this analogy before. Back in the days before dating apps and online dating and all that, pretty much people would meet someone from their community. They'd be relatively local. So you wouldn't be as picky as before, and it goes both ways, both men and women. Nowadays, with dating apps where you can really cast your net far in terms of not just the community, but a neighboring state or something like that, with so many options, it's always like next, looking for that perfect person, right? And it's a lot like when I was a little kid, if my mom and dad took me out for the day and they had to go shopping and do all these errands or whatever, they would basically bribe me and say that, if I would behave, I could get a toy, right? So we might be at a little store and there might be a little toy aisle, right? And there might be some G.I. Joes and some Star Wars figures and Transformers, but not a whole lot. Some Legos. This is the early to mid 80s, so G.I. Joes and Transformers and all. And I could pick something out relatively easily, because there weren't a whole lot of options. However, if they took me to Toys R Us, when they existed, you'd have the whole store with a whole aisle to G.I. Joe, a whole aisle to Transformers, a whole aisle to Star Wars or He-Man. I could be walking around for 3 hours and I couldn't decide what to spend my, $10 on, because $10 would buy you a lot more back then. It's a lot like that with the dating apps. With so many options of guys, these gals can't make up their minds and say there's no good guys out there. Well, that's complete nonsense. Goes on. And this seems to be typical in terms of women's experiences on dating sites. Of all the women in my life, not a single one has had an overall positive experience with dating sites. Yeah, well, I know plenty of women that have had bad experiences, and I know women that have had good experiences. So, come on here. The myth of female privilege in the dating world. There seems to be the pervasive belief that men have a harder time with dating, especially in the context of dating apps. An alarmingly substantial number of men even use this idea to justify a misogynistic worldview. When I've told men in my life about all my female friends' awful experiences with dating apps, most of them have been baffled and defensive. One of them recently said to me, and this is like her male friend, "Everybody knows that dating apps are much tougher for men." I agree. "If you're a woman, you get endless amounts of attention and offers." I agree. "Being a dude sucks in the dating world in general. Men have to do all the work, and all women have to do is sit there and wait for everything to fall in their lap." That pretty much is it. I completely agree with that guy's saying. And I'm sure you guys agree with me with my opinion on this. But here we go. And if you ask most men, they'll repeat that same idea. That women have a very easy time on dating apps compared to men. That men are the pursuers and women are the objects to be pursued. And that therefore women all have great prospects constantly flocking to them. That women are so picky that it's unfair to men, producing gender inequality on dating apps. I don't think your average guy is going to actually say that term, gender inequality in the dating apps, because that your average guy just doesn't work that way, unless, of course, he's been brainwashed by the you-know-what movement to use those stupid-ass terms. We know who uses those types of terms. But what if these women are just picky because they have no reasons to worry about their safety? After all, 60% of women report that men on dating apps have kept contacting them after they told the men they weren't interested. Well, a lot of guys don't get it. A lot of guys can't take no for an answer, and I agree that's just stupid on their part. Women turns you down the first time. That doesn't mean she's going to suddenly like you the second time. So guys, there's plenty of options out there too. Woman turns you down, okay, move on. Don't let your ego be so damaged that you got to keep pestering her thinking you're going to change your mind. This isn't the movies where they show the guy. In the movies, they show guys in these stupid romantic comedies pestering and bugging the girl and wearing her down, and eventually he gets her, okay? In real life, what happens is you're going to get a restraining order. So cut that crap out. Believe me, if she liked you, she would have responded to you the first time. I got to add that there. So that's okay. I agree on that element, what she's saying. They'll often follow that up with, here we go again, misogynistic and entitled remarks about how women who've rejected them are shallow bitches who only date assholes, etc. And she says something here I'm not going to get into, and then it goes, these men often report that they'll never receive any replies on dating sites and that the experience is so demoralizing that they ultimately give up. While that sounds very distressing, and I certainly have compassion for that experience, these men are being incredibly presumptuous by assuming that women's experiences are necessarily different. Well, that's the thing is, like, the women, again, will get bombarded with the attention, whether they want that attention or not. But guys generally don't. That's just how it is. In reality, women are just as likely to face seemingly endless stream of rejection. The data backs this up. According to research on online dating, reply rates are very low overall among both men and women. Men are just more vocal about it. Well, here's the deal. If guys are ignoring or ghosting women on the dating apps, that's probably because they just simply don't find them attractive. Because believe me, if you got a woman in her pictures that she looks damn good, it's in a woman's interest to have multiple pictures and have her looking at her best. Duh. That your average guy is not going to turn her away. So obviously there's something there. Or she said something in communication that turned him off. Okay? But even then, if she was hot, he may overlook that. Professor of Sociology Elizabeth Brunt says that for the average message, reply rates are between 0% and 10%. The difference is that when this rejection happens to women, they don't complain as much. Yeah, sure. They're less likely to channel their frustration in a general disdain for men or a sense of entitlement. They're less likely to bitterly trash everyone of the opposite sex when a few guys turn them down. Well, again, that's because there's so many options their way, they got it made. It really is true. They may not be the options that they're looking for, but at least there's guys reaching out. But at the end of the day, guys, no matter what, there's always going to be an endless supply of guys that are just going to be bombarding women with attention and validation and so forth, okay? Notice the real high-value guys and high-value men, high-status men, they may send one message. They may go on there on the dating apps only because they're busy chasing after their purpose and their goals, and having themselves in the dating apps and all that is just an easier way to potentially meet some good-looking women. Okay, but I guarantee you, they're not on there all day, or they may tune in once a week because they're busy. So this idea that guys will never respond, maybe it's because these guys that these women actually may want to talk to are so busy that they're not going to be, hanging on every message that comes in. They'll check once a week or once every few days. But that could be perceived as being rejected. No, these guys are just busy. Or they're also dating other women and they take their time. So why is it that so many men cling to the unfounded belief that all women have a much easier time on dating apps? Because that's been their experience. Here's the short answer. Most women are invisible to them. Specifically, women who are not thin, white, very young, and middle to upper class are invisible. That's nonsense. That's complete nonsense. Again, if he finds her physically attractive, because guys are visual creatures, when it comes to guys, looks is the top thing, okay? I cannot stress that enough. A lot of people may not like that. Some people may say that's a bunch of BS. I'm sure I'll get some guy in the comment section that says, that's not true. Yes, it is true. Okay, for overwhelmingly a bunch of guys, it's looks. Then the other things are great, but if she doesn't meet, in our view, what is attractive on a certain level, that's it. Doesn't make a difference about the other stuff. But with women, looks will get your foot in the door, but if you don't have the confidence and personality and charm and charisma, those looks will only get you so far. Here's the short answer. Oh, I read that part. When men assume women have such an easy time getting attention, they're thinking exclusively of the small subset of women that are, here we go, that our racist, ageist, and fat-phobic society tells us are most desirable. She must be challenged in the looks department if she's going on and on about this and saying some of those things. According to the data, thin white women do receive more attention than other women. But you know who gets the most attention? Thin white men. Researchers found that white men get the highest reply rates of all groups. And more importantly, thin white women are obviously not representative of all women. For instance, although dating sites can be a hostile place for all overweight folks, they're even more discriminating for overweight women. Well, again, if she's saying discriminating as simply they're not getting the attention, what do you expect? Because generally speaking, guys are going to be attracted to thin and shaved women. Now, curves are popular. Don't get me wrong, but there's a difference between some curves and also them being very large and in charge. So if those women are unhappy with the results they're getting, the idea is that they should take action, join a gym, get on a healthy, maybe meet with a nutritionist or dietitian, and lose that weight. And if they want to, and some people say, oh, they shouldn't have to change themselves for anybody, then stop complaining. And not to mention, by doing those things to lose the weight and get healthy, you're going to prevent a lot of problems down the road, health problems, diabetes, heart disease, all sorts of other stuff. But again, we're in the victim society where everybody complains and, woe is me, and therefore, but you get people saying you shouldn't change for anybody. You shouldn't change good qualities about yourself, but positive, damaging, negative qualities, you ought to change. One large study found that 71% of plus-size women reported being bullied or received derogatory comments about their weight on dating apps. Given that 67% of women in the U.S. are classified as plus-size, we can infer that this affects what the majority of women experience. Well, them getting those nasty comments is not cool. I agree with that, okay? I don't think anybody should be doing that. I think that's definitely terrible. But at the end of the day, saying what percentage are considered to be plus-size, yeah, here in the United States, the obesity rates are through the roof. And we can take the BMI index out of the BMI index, which was set up a while ago, is complete horse crap, okay, the way they figure things, because they go on your height, your weight, and your gender, and even in some cases your age, and they don't account for muscle mass. So you could have a guy that's really jacked, but weighs a certain amount and is considered overweight according to the BMI scale, so that's a bunch of crap. But anybody here in the United States knows you go anywhere and you just see overweight people everywhere. And that doesn't mean they should be bothered or harassed or anything like that, but it's because people have bad diets, they don't get exercise, they don't take care of themselves. So, but at the end of the day, that's their fault. We take personal responsibility for your actions here. There's no pity parties here on this channel. Overall, here are just some of the female demographics who have a particularly difficult time on dating apps. Older women, trans women, BIPOC, which says Black, Indigenous, and people of color, women, disabled women, overweight women, and highly educated women. These groups don't just encompass a minority of women, they encompass most women. Well, I have news for you. There are plenty of guys that like women that are of all backgrounds, okay, and colors, okay, religions, backgrounds, what they do for a living. So that's nonsense. And she's talking about the highly educated women. Well, all these highly educated women that are on those apps probably say they don't want any guy unless he is at her level. So she has a PhD and she's only looking for guys with PhDs. Guess what? There aren't a whole lot of guys walking around that have PhDs. So, of course she's going to get less people contacting her because right there. And it goes on. Unsurprisingly, women of color have a particularly disadvantage on dating apps. This is especially true for, just to play it safe, I'm going to spell out certain words because we know how uptight the YouTube algorithm is. Especially true for BLACK women who are often either excluded from consideration or sexually fetishized. As the Atlantic Review of Major Studies in Dating App Performances concludes, white men are considered more desired than other users, while BLACK women rank unanimously lower. Some of the functions offered by dating apps also directly compound the racism that's rampant in the real world. For example, many dating sites such as OkCupid, Hinge, Coffee Meets Bagel, eHarmony, and Match provide filters that allow users to exclude specific racial groups, most commonly the BIPOC groups. There's no legitimate reason for these race-based filters to exist. They do nothing but facilitate racism, particularly anti-BLACK racism. Well, at the end of the day, people are attracted to what they're attracted to, okay? And you can't make someone out to be the root of all evil because they're attracted to a certain type, okay? Everybody has a type. Some people don't care. They're attracted to all types. Doesn't make a difference. Tall, short, thin, little junk in the trunk, curvy, black, white, Latino, whatever. They don't care. They're attracted to them all. And you have others that are attracted to a certain type, okay? Don't demonize people for what they're interested in, okay? And believe me, there are plenty of women out there that have types as well. So don't make us out to be the bad guys here. It's ridiculous. Dating app algorithms are built to magnify... Oh, God's sakes. She just won't stop with the R card here. To magnify that by ranking people of color as less popular and promoting their profiles less. As the Thomson Reuters Foundation explains, given the commonplace rejection of BLACK user profiles, algorithms that demote less popular users result in BLACK profiles appearing less frequently. And it goes on, in terms of the age-based desirability, most women are devalued for being too old. Here's why. Research has found that women's desirability on the dating apps starts to decline in their late teens. That's a bunch of crap. The peak time for women in the looks department is late teens to 30, 32, depending on that. That doesn't mean that you can't get damn good-looking women in their 30s, 40s, and in some cases 50s. If they really take care of themselves, working out, eating well, dressing well, sexy, being feminine. But a damn good-looking woman in her 40s is not going to compare to a damn good-looking woman in her 20s. Now, of course, guys are going to be trying to get, in their view, the best-looking woman they can get, so they're going to be going for the girls in their 20s. But it doesn't mean that the women in their 30s and 40s don't get plenty of dudes. How do I know? Like I said, my friend and client, she's in her early 50s. Plenty of dudes. No problem. So I just think that the woman who wrote this article is just so butthurt and just so burned that she's going to come on here, write her article, and just complain and find every negative thing because she isn't where she wants to be. That's what's really going on here. And she's going to get a lot of women that are frustrated too and just agree with her. But all these different things, come on here. Goes on. By the time women are 30, they're already at an enormous disadvantage because most men prefer younger women, and men literally filter out these older, above 25 women on dating apps by selecting much more narrow age limits compared to women. As the study confirms, the picture for men is much rosier. Their desirability steadily increases from their youth all the way through their 40s. Well, there's a lot of truth to that. Guys, we start off at the bottom of the totem pole, okay, in our teens and 20s, while women are at the top of the totem pole. But as we get to be definitely in our 30s, and especially our 40s, when we have our lives together, we're making good money, have resources, house, we've developed the confidence to be who we are, and if we're looking good, then we got it made because a lot of young women like older guys that have their lives together. Because let's be honest, a lot of guys in their 20s don't come close to having their lives together, okay? Aren't mature enough for them, or simply don't have the money, don't have the resources and all that. There's that element too. So that's how, and also guys in their 40s that have experience and do well, they're going to be like, hey, I can get women in their 40s or I can get women in their 20s. Gee, what am I going to pick? They're going to pick the girl in their 20s if they can get it, okay? That's just how it is. But I don't want to hear you complaining because you can have a lot of women that they could have a great guy they know, a lot of good things about him, but they suddenly meet a guy that's a multi-millionaire that drives a Ferrari, and that good guy they know is whoosh, he's gone for the guy that has charisma and charming and happens to be multi-millionaire. So you can complain about guys about how bad we are because God forbid we're attracted to younger women, but then again, how about all the women that will blow away good guys, no pun intended, for the guys that have a ton of money, but they could be total jackasses, right? So I don't want to hear it. Women's prospects dim not only as they age, but also as they achieve higher levels of education. One large study found that while men become more desirable to women if they had earned a postgraduate degree, women become less attractive to men. Perhaps this could be attributed to men feeling intimidated by smart or educated women, and by indicators of maturity. By contrast, men don't have to worry about emasculating or scarring away their romantic prospects by being too accomplished. I will say this, I'm sure there are definitely guys out there that are definitely threatened or intimidated because a woman obviously has a lot of success or higher degrees. There are guys that are like that out there. I'm not going to deny that. But a lot of guys simply aren't interested in that because those women, because they have those high degrees or high level of success, they're not intimidated or turned off by that. They may actually find it cool, but those women, again, they only want guys at their level, with the master's, with the PhD. Anybody else, they're just not interested. So those guys simply don't bother based on their experience or the experience of others that have shared with them. She goes on, not all attention is pleasant. Now let's discuss the small subset of women who do receive a more steady stream of positive attention. The subset of women whose existence is most visible to many men, apparently. Specifically, this group consists of thin white women in their late teens and 20s. Even for these women, attention usually doesn't guarantee a pleasant experience. Often it's precisely the opposite. Why? Because much of the attention, in my experience and others, is sexist, objectifying, disingenuous, and not well intentioned. Rather than being a fun ego boost, receiving attention like this can be deeply disturbing. It is misogynistic for men to assert that women should feel grateful for receiving messages that straddle the line between S-word harassment and vulgar flattery. That kind of attention doesn't translate into real-life romantic fulfillment or love or even basic respect. It's nothing to be envious of. Like I said earlier, these emails or messages that are obviously causing a woman to feel unsafe, threatened, all those things, that's not cool. And I'm not for that. I'm totally agree with her. That's not cool. But again, that's what the delete button's for. That's what the blocking button's for. And there are going to be guys out there who like that, and you can't change that. But still, that doesn't mean that all the messages that you get are going to be like that. And I would like to know what the percentage of that is like. And it also depends on what is her view of what is considered to be negative. Because you could have one woman that would think certain messages are inappropriate and negative, and others that just laugh it off and don't care and just say, they don't care. If you're a man who's frustrated about your terrible experience of dating apps, take some time to realize that women's dating struggles are often much worse. Yeah, sure. After all, men don't hold a monopoly on rejection. Most people, regardless of gender, face plenty of rejection. Most people have to navigate a world that denies their desirability, and those who are deemed desirable are granted the elusive status only fleetingly. So if you haven't had much success in the dating world, take some comfort in the fact that you're far from alone. Well, like I said, going into this whole thing, I don't care what she says, it is way easier for women than men. Absolutely, hands down. And are some of those contacts something that a lot of women want? No, because again, you can have a lot of guys that are jackasses out there, or guys won't take no for an answer, stuff like that. And I agree that does happen. That's what the delete button for. That's what the blocking button is for. But at the end of the day, women have it so much better than guys on the dating apps and the dating scene in general. That's just how it is, okay? And yes, there are going to be guys that aren't going to be into you for different reasons, because guys, just like women, have types, and there's nothing wrong with that. So stop playing the different cards of age and race and all those other things, and just, take care of yourself. If the woman writing this happens to be overweight, well, there's things you can certainly do to improve your situation. And you lose weight, you're going to help your game big time. If you dress better, you're going to help your game big time. If you got short hair, grow that hair long. Most guys love long hair. That will help you out. And if your attitude is, I shouldn't have to change myself for anybody, then don't complain. Okay? Because I tell guys to do things to improve themselves, and I don't have guys come on here and whine and complain saying, I shouldn't have to change myself. If you have negative qualities, you should change yourself. If you have things that need improvement, you should improve yourself. And if you're unwilling to do those things, you got no right whatsoever to complain that things aren't going the way you want them to be. Okay? Not at all. So, anyhow, guys, I know that was a long article, but I thought it was good to point out. Total BS in my opinion. But anyhow, guys, that is it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Let me know your opinion. Let me know if you agree with her or you agree with me. And for those of you guys who do dating apps regularly, let me know about your experiences. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.